It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Robbins.
Welcome to Veterans Issues. We are brought to you by the Red, White, and Blue. Appreciate you tuning in this week. Today's guest is a repeat from before. He's been on here a few times. I worked with him many years. He's a World War II veteran. Got a movie out called My Anniston. Stay where you are. We're going to talk with Edward Wood. Be right back. Get up in. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Today we're talking with Edward Wood. Edward is a World War II veteran. He's a hunter. He's a fisherman. He's just a man of all things. He's a movie star too. So welcome to the show, Edward Wood.
Thank you.
You like that? I call you a movie star, don't you?
I'm moving. I don't know about the star.
Yeah. We're going to talk in the second portion. We're going to talk about your documentary, My Anniston, Edward Wood. But first of all, I want the people out there that a lot of people go through life and they don't do anything. And you've enjoyed your life. I mean, I've watched you for many years. You do things, hunt and fish, and out there working in the community and help people. And you've just done a lot of things. You happy with what you've done so far?
Very happy. I grew up with a lot of hate, and I finally got that hate out of me, and I decided that I'm not ever going to stoop that low again. So I'm just enjoying every day, thanks to the good Lord.
Well, you know, to put some basis on that, I don't want anybody to get the impression that you're just a person looking out there to hate. If I had been through any portion of what you went through in your life and your family went through, I don't think I could be so pleasant about it as you have been. You've been able to get to a place a lot of people can't get to and don't even try to get to. They just rather live in that old. But ever since I've known you, you've been able to take a step forward and stand up for what you believe in and stand up for your people. If you and I mean your people, you've been a supervisor in a lot of places. M&H Valve, you was a union. I know one of my relatives worked down there with you, and one thing he always said about it, he said you could always count on Edward, he was fair, F-A-I-R. And if we could leave that kind of legacy, that's pretty good to say he was a fair person.
Well, I try to be.
And the people that worked for you out of down at Snarby Depot, same thing, fair. He was fair. Yeah. So I saw one of your employees the other day. That's what we talked about, what a fair supervisor you was.
Well, I try to be. I try to treat people like I want to be treated. Mm-hmm. I had a pretty rough time back when I was younger. My granddad on my dad's side of the family owned my grandmother, and he had 2 children by her. And he retired. My dad died when I was 12 years old. I grew up on a cotton farm down in Clay County, and I had a man kick me several times when I was 12 years old, and I grew up with a lot of hate. The only thing that I accomplished was I had high blood pressure, a nervous condition, stomach ulcers, and I finally got that out of me, and I won't ever stoop to that level again.
You said something to me a lot of years ago. You probably you sharecropping. You did a lot of cropping. Not a lot of share.
That's exactly right. We did a lot of cropping, but very little sharing. The landlord always managed to outfigure you, and if he didn't get what he wanted through figuring, they'd put the sheets over the head, many of them, not all of them. Some of them were very nice, but some of them would put the sheet over the head, and then you'd have to find somewhere else to live, and they would gather the crop and get it all.
People today don't have any idea what it was like back in the day when you was really mistreated because of the color of your skin. It's bad. I'm not saying that things are fine now, but if they only knew what people of your era went through, that's not what we're here today to talk about, but we talk about how you got to where you are today, because where you've been, you learned a few things, didn't you?
Oh, I learned a lot. Yeah. But I'm aiming for a better place, Ken. That's why I'm got all that hate out of me, and I try to keep a smile on my face, because somebody up there is keeping records. Oh, yeah. And they don't make any mistakes. So I hope to leave here and go to a better place when that time comes. But I'm not homesick, so I'm in no hurry to go.
Like we said before we went on air, I want to go to heaven, but I don't want to go right now.
Not today.
Yeah.
No, I'm not in a hurry.
Yeah, it's about a legacy type thing. What do you want people to say about you're gone, after you're gone, what was he? And that's what I was saying. If somebody can say Edward Wood was a fair man, that's a pretty good legacy, because you think of the people in your life, you can't say that about many people, that they was fair in all things. And if especially in supervisors, nobody likes supervisors. They didn't like me and you, did they? Yeah. But that was, but one of the things I've admired with you is once you retired, you didn't just retire. You had that, within weeks, you had that boat in the water, and you had, if I go into your carport, that's all I see is critters on the wall. You got everything mounted up there.
Well, I've killed quite a few deer and turkey. I've killed a few bobcats. I've killed a few coyotes. Just about everything legal except a wild hog. And I'm trying to get a wild hog now. You
left out something that you don't remember this probably, but when we were working together at the depot, you had a coon that you had brought some coon meat in. You remember that?
Yeah.
And you tried to get our boss to eat some of it, and he did. He took it and chewed it around till you turned your back. Then he went like that, and it went in the trash can. I'm gonna out him right now that he did not eat that coon meat. Neither did I, but.
Well, I grew up on rabbit, squirrel, coon, just about whatever you could catch, and in many instances there would be no meat on the table if you didn't kill something.
Well, I told you about the shadow rabbit, but you never did do that. Killed a lot of rabbits, I tell you. That was now you worked out at M&H Valve here in Anniston. How long was you out there?
18 years.
18. Was you a supervisor?
The last 5 years. I was a union steward for the first part of our employment out there. And then I made supervisor. For the last 5 years, I supervised.
And I knew you when you went to work at the depot, and you was a supervisor, and I was a supervisor where desks were just a few feet apart. But those were real days, I can tell you, with you some stuff. But we knew how to play the game called Bid Whist.
Right.
I bet there's not many people watching us out there today know what that is. And I just wondered how many of them out there cheated as bad as we had people that tell you. And I never cheated, but we had some people that did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, some people were experts in cheating.
Speaking of that, I talked to a young lady last night and told her we were going to do the show today. Lynn, you remember Lynn Barley, but Lynn
yes.
Waller now, Lynn Waller over in Georgia.
Yes.
And she said she wished she could be here with us, but we couldn't do the show if she was here. And we're talking about Bid Whist. She was a cheater. She would cheat in the game. If you wanted a diamond, she'd do like this, You remember all that?
Oh, yes. Yes. I had not seen or heard from her in a long time. I'd like to see her.
Well, she's watching this, and so you'd do like
good.
Yeah.
Good.
She's, we love her some Lynn. But anyhow, we're going to talk on the second portion about this documentary about My Anniston. We don't want to give too much of that away, but in this last minute, I want to go into some things about Edward Wood. And when you lived in Anniston, how did you get to Anniston?
Well, I went in World War II. There were 4 of us brothers drafted in World War II. And when I got discharged, I loafed a while. I went to Chicago and stayed up there for a while. And then I came back and stopped over in Anniston. And that's how I became a citizen of Anniston. I've been here ever since. That was about 1950 or 51.
And we were talking out in the Blue Room. We got to go to a break, but I wanted to tell you, that where you said you come to town, once a month by wagon?
Yeah.
And it's a full day, 1 day trip.
Yeah, we leave Clay County before daylight in the morning and come up here to 9th and Noble, between 8th and 9th and Noble. There was a grocery store there, and I can't remember the people who owned and ran that store. But that's as far as I ever got. I never knew there was any more to Anniston. We'd load up and eat, and then we'd go back to Clay County, and it'd be way in the night when we got back.
Well, we got to go to a break. So let's do that, and then we'll come back. We're going to talk more with Edward about My Anniston. Be right back. Get you a pen. Welcome back to Veterans Issues, and we're talking with Edward Wood today, and we're talking about his life, and then we're talking about a documentary called My Anniston. And then we'll get back to Edward. Edward, a few years ago, some people came out and shot a documentary of your life. How long is that documentary? 30 minutes or so?
It's a little over an hour long.
Okay. and it starts with sitting at your. If we can get the control room to get that ready, we'll give the folks a little idea of what's going on out there and what we're talking about. And
my name is
we'll pull that
Edward
up.
Wood. I was born March the 15th of 1927 in Clay County, Alabama. Growing on a farm, we were known as sharecroppers. We did a lot of cropping, but we did very little sharing. Somehow the landlord managed to take what you made. You're supposed to have gotten half of what you made, but you paid your bills out of your half, and by the time you finished paying your bill, there was nothing left. Well, this is my dad, John Wood, and two brothers, Harmon and Norman. One of them died when he was 2 years old. The other one died just a few years ago. Well, my daddy was actually born a slave. He was born February the 17th in 1861, and his master was his daddy. He owned my grandmother on my daddy's side, and he had two children by her, and he was from Hurd County, Georgia, by way of Texas. He moved into Randolph County, Alabama, and when he died, my dad and his sister inherited his land.
Yeah, that was an interesting part there about your dad and being a slave of. To say your father was a slave.
Yes.
And your grandfather owned the slave.
My grandfather owned my grandmother, and
Okay.
he had two children by her.
Okay.
He was a slave master, and of course, my daddy was born a slave.
Mm-hmm.
He never had to work the field because his daddy was his master. His master was his daddy. And when I grew up, we wasn't really slaves, but we did a lot of work and didn't for nothing in most instances. But I grew up on a cotton farm, and I went in World War II and stayed. I was in the Navy during World War II. I came home on my first furlough, standing up on a bus, looking at vacant seats and couldn't sit down.
You was in uniform.
Yes, and in fact, there were three of us brothers in the Pacific at the same time. Two of them was on Guam. I was stationed on an aircraft carrier, and I went within a mile of the island and knew I had two brothers out there, but I couldn't get off the ship because it was hot. I don't mean
Hot.
sunshine.
Yeah, I know the people didn't take a joke back them days. They shoot real bullets in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's. But to be through, I know a couple of your brothers, and I've been around some of your family, and your kids, your grandkids, and all of that. It's just remarkable that the perspective that y'all, and I say y'all, I mean the whole family has on this this thing called America. Your son did absolutely great when at Chattanooga Pee Wee.
Thank you.
You got a grandson that flies them Chinook helicopters around. We're gonna get him on this show one day. Me and you gonna do that.
Oh.
But Vanessa, you got every one of your kids. You got to be proud, and your grandkids.
I'm very proud of them.
Yeah.
Very proud.
If there was ever a person that I know of that I've ever met across the path that has a reason to be mad at things that's happened to them in their life, and you know, I see these things are going on across the country, and to say that racism is not out there anymore, I'd be lying to say that. They may be as much as it was ever before, but it's calmed down a little bit. But things are better. Things are better than they used to be back in the day, as we call it. But for anybody that wanted an excuse for saying, the man kept me down right here, you didn't teach your kids that. I mean, you taught them they could be what they wanted to be.
Well, that's what my parents taught me, that even with all of its faults, America is the best country in the world. I've had an opportunity to go to several other countries while I was in the military, and I find that with all of its faults, America is by far the greatest place I've ever lived.
I heard you tell Sheriff Wade something about a foot of America or an inch of American land. What was that statement?
I would not swap 12 inches of America for any country I've ever been in as a place to live, with all of its faults.
Yeah.
And I personally helped to do what I could to make it that way.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to, we hear of people like Rosa Parks, and we hear of people that Martin Luther King, and we hear of the people, Reverend Abernathy, and people that went out front there, and they were calling themselves soldiers. But there's people like you that you got on the front seat of the bus before the getting on the front seat of the bus was popular. I mean, you was one of the first people to ride in the front seat of a bus here in the city of Anniston, if I remember right.
Yes, I was. I didn't have any problem, really. The company went out of business. There was many years there was no bus in Anniston, but nobody bothered us physically. But I also sat in at a lunch counter. I carried my son. We went to Weichel Drug Company. They had a lunch counter. There was 4 in Anniston at that time. And my son was only about 4 years old, and he wanted a hamburger. And I knew he couldn't have one, so I just picked him up and carried him back out the store. And I didn't get my prescription filled that day because of that. And of course, my son didn't know why that he couldn't have it. He knew I had enough money to pay for it, and he knew they had hamburgers because he saw them. But I haven't told him even today why he couldn't have one. Yeah. I'm sure he's figured it out.
Yeah, and the only thing that you had that they had against you was the color of your skin. That was the whole thing. Now we're down to run out of time here. I want the bus burning out there in front of Forsyth Grocery. You witnessed that, you and your wife, and we got a minute, so let's go back to that.
This was Mother's Day in 1961. I was carrying my wife out to lunch. I knew about the Freedom Bus. I knew about the problem they had at the bus station, but I thought it was all over and they was going to Birmingham. But they got the tires cut here, and they had to pull off down by Forsyth store. And I pulled right up behind the bus, and there was about 5 or 6 carloads of Klansmen, I assume, following the bus. And they made me get back in my car, and I went on down the road about, I was going about 8 or 10 minutes, turned around, came back, and the Freedom Rider was all outside of the road, bleeding and crying, and it was not a very beautiful sight.
Yeah, we run out of time, but I just want to make sure that they're going to build a museum out there on 202, and they're going to be the bus station down in Anniston. That's going to be something, if we don't do it in our time, we can't count on the people coming behind us to get that done. So I just want people to remember that there's people like Edward Wood still on this earth, and I love you like a brother, and I appreciate you being on the show today.
I love you too, Ken, and I appreciate you letting me be on your show. Thank you very kindly.
We got to go to a break, come back. I got news you can use. Stay where you are, get you a pen. Welcome back. Excuse me. Welcome back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins, and I appreciate Edward Wood coming on and doing the show today, and I hope you got something out of that. And we'll have him back on here before too long. We got to finish up some stuff we left on the table. I want to give you a phone number. That's until I get the pen. This Alabama Wounded Warriors number. I want you to write that down because it's Christmas time and they can use some help out there. And this is just for Alabama, and all the money goes to the Wounded Warriors. The number is 844-448-3992. 844-448-3992. If you've got any power chairs out there that you don't need, and they got good batteries in them and everything, they're operating. I got veterans out there that can use them. They're not eligible to get them through the VA, so if you got one, and I want to thank a fellow that helped us out on that thing, Mr. Jim Hibbett's a good friend of mine. Jim, thank you. And I also, anyone out there that needs a hospital bed, give me a holler. I got a fellow who's going to give a hospital bed. And if you got anyone out there that knows of a veteran in need, a family in need, veteran and the family, or just a veteran, we've got some brothers that worked out at the depot with me and Mr. Wood, and they want to do something for a veteran for Christmas, like turkey and ham and things like that, and feed the family. So if you got somebody like that in mind, give me a call. You got my information that comes across the screen right here, and just give me a call, and we will we'll take care of that. I'd like to. I just call him brother-in-law. brother-in-law got some people that want to help. That's really nice for the. Now this is the urgent thing I got to talk. Toys for Tots. They need toys, folks. The address, if you can take any toys, if you don't have them out there, the boxes may have already been picked up, but go to 1112 Noble Street. 1112 Noble Street in Anniston for Toys for Tots. Don't let these kids go without gifts this year. So this is a great thing. This is something that really, I've seen it personally, that it does go, sometimes it's the only Christmas these kids get. And you can help out by putting your little bit in there, and then they put it with some more, and the kid has a great Christmas. So the Marine Corps League has a place set up down at 1112 Noble Street, and go down and if you need the phone number, let me give you that. 256-310-6481, 310-6481. That's Dan Long, and he'll tell you what you can do, where you can take the toys. Let's see. I gotta make sure I just get the main thing. Okay. Bill Partridge, Chief of Police of Oxford, put out a thing the other day about the law enforcement tag, encouraging people to purchase one of those. You do not have to be a member of law enforcement to get that tag. And that revenue from the tag goes to the small portion goes to Washington, D.C., but the major portion of it goes up here to Centennial Memorial Park for the Alabama Law Enforcement Memorial and the other memorials that we're putting in there. So that's the way we were able to build that law enforcement memorial, was from the revenue from that tag. So when you go get your tag, think about the law enforcement tag. What it does is someone's following you to see that tag on there with that shield and that rose. They know one thing about you, that you support the fallen officer that was killed in the line of duty. So think about that the next time you go to get your tag. And if you are somebody, you're watching this on TV and you know somebody that don't get it, just give me a Facebook friend request. We post it every week, and we'll let you view the show on there. The only thing you get to see on Facebook is it don't have commercials in it, doggone it. but anyhow, that's if you'd like to send me a Facebook friend request, and we'll take care of it. We're going to go this week, and I wish all of you a Merry Christmas. Those that don't get it, don't get to hear it again. This week's salute goes out to the fellow that I had on the show today. He's a very dear friend. I love him like a brother. His name is Edward Wood, and this salute's for you, Edward. We're gone.